Hello everyone, this is Gary from Fantastic Fundas, and in this lecture today we are going to talk about what next after CDM. CDM आकर चलेगी, what to do now, right? From 34 to 37, this what to do, that is the question we are discussing. So this is the first stage of debate, okay? So what is second debate, I'll tell you that. Let's focus on this one only, that what to do next. There are various options actually, okay? So there are two traditional responses, okay? First response, what to do next after CDM has been drawn. There's nothing, right? So Gandhi says, okay, fine, let's do constructive work like always. He would focus on that, revival of village craft, untouchability, lado, keep unity, all that. Then number two is by the congressmen who advocated the constitutional method of struggle. Okay, constitutional method of struggle. Participation in election to the CLA was to be held in the year 1934. Okay, now Central Legislative Assembly, and there were few leaders who are called as suffragists. Okay, and this time suffragists are different. For example, this time suffragists include Ansari. Earlier suffragist was a no changer. Do you remember no changers? I told you PAR, right? The PAR was Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, Ansari, Rajendra Prasad, and Rajagopalachari. So, but Ansari now has moved to the suffragist, and he said, let's do consul entry. There are other people. For example, there is Asif Ali. Asif Ali is there. Then there is Satyamurthy. Okay, Satyamurthy. Right, and then there is also Bhula Bhai Desai, and number lastly is B.C. Roy. Okay, and then they give same old suffragist argument. They were talking about that it's a question of Congress prestige, and we will not fight more. We'll fight them morally. We will not get corrupt, and we will not use constitutional practice for our own interest, and we will do the politicization of the people. So such things were being talked about. Okay. Now, so what is the new approach of the suffragists? They say, okay, this is just for the time period. हम कौन सा यहाँ बैठ ही गए हैं. This is just for a small time period, okay? Just for small times, okay. Let us go there. And it amount to, that doesn't mean that we are having faith in constitutional politics. See, just because we have taken part in election doesn't mean we are having constitutional politics में faith. See, it was just opening another front, okay, against the Britishers. And why should, when we can have role in administration, leave even that to the Britishers? Okay, in fact, there was earlier Rajagopalachari, as I told you, right? He was a no changer, but even he said that, recommended to Gandhi that progress itself should directly take, Congress itself should directly take to the parliamentary work. So this is what is being talked about here now. Okay, then these methods are going on. Okay, the number one is Gandhi, then the Congress, and then the third method over here comes, which is by the Nehru or the leftist way, and they say no, we cannot follow any both of them. Okay, so what to do? They say each one of them had their problem. They said let's do a non-constitutional struggle. Non-constitutional struggle, mass movement, as the situation was still revolutionary, and because of the economic crisis, people were still ready for that. Okay, they said because of economic crisis, people are still ready for mass movement, but this is not true actually. Okay, they later on realized this thing. What was the Nehru's approach, and what is the difference between Gandhian approach over here? We'll talk about that. See, basically what Nehru is suggesting, that what we should do over here after the CDM is over, that we should, Nehru is saying that Nehru's ideas were revolutionary, okay, and also of course reformist, and then he was one of those who represented this third option. He said that the basic goal before the Indian people is abolition of capitalism and establishment of socialism. Okay, socialism को establish करेंगे and capitalism को खत्म करेंगे. That is what is the idea. Socialism up, capitalism down. To Nehru, withdrawal of the CDM and the consul entry and all that is nonsense. Okay, resorting to, he said, what is this constructive program with spiritual? He said we cannot defeat them spiritually. We need not go to back to pre-1919 politics. That was Nehruvian idea. Nehru said that the way out was having a class struggle, and since masses are ready, we should go for it right now. Okay, and in fact he challenged the Gandhian way of struggle, which is the STS. What is Gandhi? He says struggle and then T. Okay, truce. Why truce? Because our capacity to struggle is limited. Obviously masses cannot struggle forever. बाल बच्चे पालने भाई, Okay, so struggle is the struggle, true struggle. That is the policy that he's following. So under this phase, twin ideological notion on which the colonial regime was based, they were being challenged during the struggle time. Again, that's the same old story: British rule are benefit of India, British are invincible, all that story, they cannot be overthrown. This was challenged. So Nehru didn't agree with this. He said the national movement had reached a stage where even there should be permanent confrontation. Permanent confrontation. That was Nehru's idea at this time, and there can be he said that there can be upswings and downswings, right? And he wanted a direct action policy, and for this he suggested the policy of SV, for struggle till there is victory. That was his idea. Okay, and he said continue till that the stage was reached, this confrontation stage was reached from the Lahore session of Purna Swaraj. What is there left? Okay, so he was literally obsessed with the idea, you can say, if not obsessed, I mean, he was really moving forward to this idea of complete freedom. So Nehru and leftists, now they are on the one side. Okay, so on one side whom are they? Are Nehru and the leftist, right? And Swarajist on the other side, and then Gandhi viewpoint on it. Okay, so nationalists had apprehensions, and Britishers the hope that there will be a split. Nationalists, okay, they were saying that if these people continue, they were split, and even the Britishers were hoping there will be a split. But Gandhi comes to diffuse the situation. Okay, he diffuses the situation. How he diffuses the situation? He conciliates Nehru. Conciliation. Okay, conciliation. He conciliates Nehru that the withdrawal of CDM was because of political situation, and in no way was going down to imperialism. Okay, it was not related to imperialism just because we are not fighting them now. Okay, because now the time there are truce, we'll struggle soon. Okay, he further appeased Nehru by strongly supporting the Nehru in August 1934 for the presidentship of Lucknow session of Congress, which he comes in 1935 actually, right? Despite the contrary pressure from C. Rajagopalachari, everyone is opposing. So you see, ज़्यादा ही कुछ support Nehru को यहाँ पर मिल जाती है. And Gandhi at this time he knew, Gandhi, what was he doing? He knew that he is out of sync with the Congress. Nobody is listening to him. He said, okay, fine, misters. Fine, sirs and madams, I resign. You go do whatever you want. Some felt strange from the Congress because of focus of Gandhi on spinning wheel as a second lung. They said, what are you doing? Just spinning wheel. How will we win the freedom? So, such because of these reasons, Gandhi said, okay, fine, man. In October 1934, he says, I am going. Aap sambhalo apna kaam. I am resigning. No, he doesn't say like that. He says just that, announce that he would serve through better deed and action, word and deed from outside. Okay, and he said based on three bases: parliamentary politics, social. So on three bases he quits. One was the parliamentary politics, and second was the socialist was against him. Third, people did not believe in khadi and spinning of the wheels. So Gandhian philosophy has been outrightly, totally neglected, rejected at this time. So Gandhi says, what will I do? Better I leave the Congress, and Gandhi leaves the Congress at this time. Now, after Gandhi leaves the Congress, there is a pressure on the Nehru also कि मियाँ आप क्या कर रहे हैं? What are you doing here? You also leave now. Because of you, Gandhi has left because people were emotionally attached to Gandhi. So he clarified that before socialism can be waged, Britishers must be expelled from India, and he is not fighting for socialism at present. He was fighting for the freedom of the country. Okay. Now, in this background comes the election. Okay, here we are contemplating what to do. सोचते while we were thinking elections came. When did elections come? They come in November 1934. Elections to the Central Legislative Assembly were to be held. Okay, and out of the 75 seats that were there, 45 seats this time were won by the Congress. Earlier, if you remember, in the first election that I talked about, 42 were won, and then there was some split and all. Then the suffragist and all non-suffragist story came, and then the seat number of seats went down to 40. So these things were happening. Okay, so British thought process at this time was that. So what were British thinking? British were thinking that, see, 1932 to 33, the mass movement, okay, this 33 movement, this movement was suppressed. Okay, but government was aware that suppression, you can suppress people only for small time. So something more consistent has to be done at this time. And to permanently weaken the movement, it was important. How do you do this? Weaken the movement by dividing the Congress, like always they have been doing so. And to divide the Congress further, they would do two things. Okay, they would do two things. What are those two things? Number one is they would do the repression. Again, carrot and stick. They would use the stick, and the carrot is in the shape of the Government of India Act of 1935. Now we will talk about this Government of India Act 1935. What is this act? What are these details? We will talk about that. Government of India Act 1935, right? Now, basically, the details of this were prepared by the Britishers during the time of the third RTC, which was of course not attended by Congress, Gandhi, Nehru, all these people, right? And the main discussion was on this, okay? And here they talked about forming two things, okay? Number one was the formation of the All India Federation. Number one, they are talking about formation of All India Federation. Number two that they were talking over here, it was the okay, let me just put it here this way and this, right? It will be easier for you. Number two was about he was talking about the formation of the changes at the federal level, and number three that this act wanted to introduce was the provincial autonomy. Okay, we'll talk about all these in a little detail. This All India Federation of India, they wanted to form this by ending that diarchy. Okay, please remember this. And this was to be based on few things. For example, number one, it was to include the British Indian provinces, which were 11 at that time, right? And number two was the Chief Commissioner provinces, which were 6 at that time, and then there were princely states also, which were to be treated separately at this time. Princely states were there. Now, who will be part of a federation? Who will be part of this federation that they are talking about? There are a few conditions for that. For example, one of the conditions was that states with 52 seats, okay, in provincial under this thing federal structure, there will be two things. They'll introduce bicameral legislature. One will be council of states like Rajya Sabha of today. So they said under that, in that Rajya Sabha, whosoever 52 seats in council, they should join federation. They should. Number two, such states should contribute 50% of the population of India. Only only then the federation can come into being. Since this thing never happened, this condition was never fulfilled, so federation never came into being. So this idea of the Federation of India was never fulfilled actually. Okay, so these conditions were not fulfilled, so no federation ever came. So therefore, up to 1946, right, the government was being run as per the 1919 Act. Okay, so basically the 1919 Act policy continued up to this time. Okay, so what was happening at the federal level? At federal level, you see there are happenings at two levels. Okay, one is the executive level and one is the legislature level. Let me talk to you about executive level. Again, Governor General was to be the pivot of the constitution. Governor General was the pivot of entire constitution. Number one. Number two, there were subjects. These subjects were divided. One was the reserved list and one was the transferred list. This reserved list, all the ecclesiastical affairs, okay, and including a foreign affair and defense. If you remember, Gandhi Irwin Pact asked for this. Gandhi asked for this in foreign affair and defense in Gandhi Irwin Pact, but here they are denying us. Okay, no control of the legislation was being given over here. And so we have foreign affair and this thing called defense, and there was also tribal affair. All this was part of the reserved list. Okay, and under transferred list, what was there? Under transferred list, there was under the Governor General on the advice of the elected ministers of the legislature. Okay, so there were to be elected minister of legislature, they were to be there, right? And these ministers were responsible to federal legislature and they had to resign on losing the confidence. This was the problem with these legislatures over here. Okay, and all other subjects which they were obviously under Governor General. Now, security or the tranquility of India, regarding this the Governor General had exclusive provisions. Okay, security and tranquility, right? Okay, now we'll come back to the second part of it. This one is executive, second part is the legislature of it. Now, legislature, there were three lists in this, right? One was the federal list, one was the provincial list, and third was the what is known as concurrent list. Okay, and religion and class based electorate were extended, and 80% of the budget at this time was still non-votable, and residuary powers were with the governor, and when it comes to law making. Okay, so residuary with the Governor General or the Viceroy. Now, he could restore cut in grant, certify bills certified by legislature, he could issue ordinance. Okay, ordinance and the veto, everything was with him, right? And then this legislature which was there, it was made bicameral over here. For example, the Rajya Sabha, that is the council of the states, was introduced, and number two thing that was introduced was the Federal Assembly that was introduced. Regarding council of states, it had 260 members. Okay, and out of 260 members, 150 members were elected from the provinces. Okay, 260 members there. Out of this, 156 were to be from provinces, out of which 150 members were to be on the basis of communal electorates. and this gave in this community council there was disproportional representation, disproportional weightage was given, and 40% of this was to be nominated by the princes. Okay, as I told you, 40% nomination princes. Permanent body for 5 years thi, and one third of the members were to retire, one third of the member were to retire every third year. That is how this was working. Okay, and rest were directly from the British provinces. When I talk to you about Federal Assembly, it had 375 members. If you remember Nehru report, that had recommended 500 members for 3 years, and in this one third member, that is 125 member, were to be nominated by the princes. That was the problem over here, by the princes. Okay, to check and of course counter the nationalists, and rest were directly elected by the British Indian provinces. So British provinces were the main people in this Federal Assembly over here, and vote of no confidence was also vote of no confidence could be introduced against the people in the Federal Assembly. So okay, that is how the things were happening, right? Now we come to the provincial autonomy part of it. Aim of the provincial autonomy of the Britishers, they wanted to do provincialization of Congress. They wanted to divide Congress into small parts to create autonomous centers of power within the Congress. So basically what they wanted to do was weaken the Congress. Okay. Now you see, it was after 1937 election happened, in response to parliamentary committee was formed to counter the strategy of provincial autonomy, right? Under few people, for example, it was under Patel and Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Okay, Maka, if you remember that, Patel, Maka, and Rajendra Prasad. Okay, under these people we formed this thing, parliamentary committee, to counter the British tactic of dividing Congress. Okay, parliamentary committee. You see, Congress is strong, it's a proof. Otherwise, why would Britishers try to conquer the Congress? Okay, and this system over here, this replaced diarchy. So diarchy has been replaced by Act of 1935, and separate legal entity was to be given to the provinces. So the provinces now are free. They are separate legal entity at this time, and they were freed from the superintendence and the direction of the Secretary of the State. They were not under Secretary of the State or the Viceroy, as was the case earlier. Okay, and then further, let me just change the color for sake of visibility over here. Further, they were given independent financial powers. They could borrow money for their own security. Okay, so the financial powers were differentiated over here, financial powers, and then they were given independence, so independent financial power. Then there are also this provincial council. I'll have to clear the screen now. Okay, let me just try to clear this part only, right? Okay, I'll just add over here. Just like say center, there was also a federal executive part and the legislature part also. So in executive, there was a governor who was a crown's nominee. Please remember this thing, he was a crown's nominee. This is very important fact over here, and he was king's representative to exercise king's authority in provinces. And governor had many power. For example, he had power regarding minorities, rights of the civil servants, and the law and order. So many things are under him, and the British business interest, so he was to manage that, and partially excluded areas and princely states, all the area was under the governor. Now governor was independent of the viceroy over here. He could take over and run over the administration indefinitely as he wanted. And regarding legislature, what is happening, that separate electorates were continued. Okay, they were in fact widened, and more people were given separate electorate, and all the members to this provincial legislature were directly elected. This is important aspect of it, directly elected. And franchise was extended. Women got right to vote on the same basis as men. Okay, the property restriction, all the restriction was there. All the overall the right to vote remained very low. Okay, and provincial and concurrent list was they also had control over the subject. For example, they had provincial list and the concurrent list, and then 40% of the budget in the provinces was not votable, and governor had the power. Governor had lot of powers. Okay, now I'll have to rub this thing only. Okay, in provincial autonomy, governor, he had lot of power. For example, he could refuse to give the assent to bill, number 1. Number 2, he could pass an ordinance. Number 3 is that he could enact Governor's Act. Number 4 is he could veto the legislation and legislate on his own. Number 5 is he had full control over the civil services and the police. Okay, and that is how it is going on. Okay, Viceroy was to retain the special control over the subject. Overall, if I talk to you at this time, franchise was just 1/6 of the adults. NCRT says it was just 14%. Earlier it was 6%. So this figure is 16% over here. So somewhere around 14 to 16% was there. Provinces were to be based on under a new system called as provincial autonomy, right? Under which what happened? The elected ministers control all provincial departments. So elected ministers were there. That is what the provincial autonomy how it was given. Okay, and governors appointed by British, they retained all the special power. They could veto and all. I told you that. So overall, franchise overall, if I have to say to you about this Government of India Act, overall, the franchise was limited just to 14 to 16%, and Governor General had many safeguards, and governor's power were too much. Okay, and these powers were extensive, and then there were a communal electorate. They were also expanded, which is led to division of India also, and they culminated in partition of India, and whatever the constitution that they gave at this time, it was a rigid constitution. It was not of great help. Right of amendment was reserved with British Parliament. That remained a major problem over here. Okay, now that was the major thing that you need to remember about the Government of India Act. But then I will give you some extra information also about the Government of India Act. Okay, I had to put it this way because I just cannot put all the information at one place. With that, what will happen? You will get confused because some of it is the analytical part. That is why I have done this. Okay. Now, what is extra information? Indian Council was abolished and advisory board was introduced. So Indian Council in London, this was abolished, and rather we had now advisory board. Okay, number one. Number two is that the Burma was separated from India. Okay, number two is there. Number three is that Aden was also separated and it was surrendered to the British colonial office. British colonial office had this Aden with them. Okay, now what more was there at this time? You see, this Burma actually partition announced in 1935, but it really happens in 1937. Okay, but for paper we call it 1935, right? And for the first time, direct elections were introduced with the Government of India Act, and because of this, they increased the franchise, right? At this time, partial organization of the provinces was done at this time also. So Sindh, which was a long pending demand, Sindh was separated from Bombay. Muslim League is happy now, and splitting Bihar and Odisha into separate provinces. Bihar and Odisha now. Okay, they separated at that time, and complete separation of Burma, India and Aden, I told you already. Okay, and this act basically, upper house I have talked to you, and then also there was extra information. Federal court was also formed at this time. Federal court, which was established, started working from 1937. The Chief Justice of the first Chief Justice was Sir Maurice Gwyer, and this question has been asked in paper few times. Okay, for Sir Maurice Gwyer, and one Chief Justice and not more than 6 judges. So 1 plus 6, this was there, right? And this was how it was in our constitution. Later on, we amended the constitution to include more judges. And number 7 is the formation of the Federal Railway Authority was made to make sure that the railway remains profitable for the British investments sitting in London. And then you see the Simon Commission had promised dominion status, but then this Government of India Act did not give us any kind of dominion status. Now lastly, you need to remember that the federal part of this act was never introduced. It was only the second part, provincial autonomy part, that was introduced in India through the Government of India Act. Now the question is, the next part of it is that so that was all about Government of India Act 1935. Now we'll look for what was the hope and what was the strategy of British from Government of India Act. Okay, not this, from Government of India Act, right? Now what was that? See, it could revive the political standing of the liberals. They wanted to make liberals mainstream so that they don't have to fight, use repression, and they are looked upon as peaceful. Number one. Number two, suppression. Suppression would convince few congressmen that extra legal means were not good. So they wanted to do little bit of suppression, and they wanted to tell people that, oh look, we have given you Government of India Acts. Now if you follow this, you won't be beaten up. Okay. Number 3 was, they hoped that once people tasted power, they would get corrupt. Number 4 was, it would create a split within the Congress. They were looking on the basis of constitutionalism versus non-constitutionalism, on the basis of the right versus left, and the basis of the constitution versus non-constitutional. That is what they were looking for. Now left would see all this as a compromise with the imperialism, and then they would break away from the Congress for their aggressive anti-right stand, would leave the right wing in the Congress alone. Either way the Congress would be split, and once split it can be used to suppress them easily. So basically they wanted to split them, and once split them then you suppress them. That was the idea. And once the Nehru wasn't even arrested because government thought that his speeches are helping in the division of Congress, and that would lead to split, and that would lead to suppression, and thus control of the Britishers. Okay, and provincial autonomy, it was hoped, provincial autonomy, it would create powerful provincial leaders. Okay, provincial autonomy, powerful leaders would be created, provincial leaders, and within the Congress, and those gradually would become autonomous centers of political power. Congress would thus be provincialized. Okay, Congress would be provincialized, and the all India leadership would be weakened. Okay, leadership overall would be weakened, and federal part was never introduced, as I told you, and provincial parties part was soon put into operation in 1937 only, right? How was the Indian reaction to this Government of India Act of 1935? Obviously they all condemned it, right? Condemn. Number 2 was rejected. Congress rejected it, right? Number 3 is Congress rather demanded instead the convening of constituent assembly on the basis of adult franchise to form a constitution for India, and they were to fight election to show efficiency of the 1935 Act. Okay, so that is how the first stage ended, that what should be done, and meanwhile that this thing had come. So while the first debate was going on, that what should be done next, whether constitutional, anti-constitutional, whether we should do council entry, we should not do that, various ideas were coming on, that debate was going on, came the second stage of the debate. Why? Because now the elections have come. So second stage of debate has come. What is this second stage of debate? The question was that should we accept office, should we fight election, should we accept the office acceptance? This was the second form of debate, question debate. The earlier question was whether to do CDM, what to do, what not to do. Now before anything could be done, 1935 Act came, and there was a lot of story after that I have discussed with you, and then came the office acceptance issue. Now after Government of India Act 1935 was passed, government decided to put into practice provincial autonomy immediately, and announced that the elections would be done under this act in the provincial legislatures in the 1937 Act. That is how these elections have come up. Now there is a question, another question has come, second debate has come up, fight election or not. Kare to kya kare? So nationalists were all opposed to new government. Okay, Government of India Act 1935. But question was how to oppose it. In the period of non-mass struggle. How to oppose the Government of India Act in the period of non-mass struggle. This was the biggest conundrum for the people at this time. So there was a debate, right? But one thing was agreed upon, that all of Congress shall fight in the upcoming elections. If Congress fights election, everyone agreed that it will have socio-economic program as part of its political program. So this unity, these things which are united, this thing continued. Okay. So, but the question remained, what to be done, whether we should fight election that or not. So this thing remained. Okay. So the answer, answer came to it. Okay. If Congress got the majority in the province, the question was whether to accept it or not. So people like Nehru, Bose, and Congress Socialist and the Communists, all those people, they were opposed to office acceptance. They had those same old reasons. Okay, they said you would be partner in repression once you enter the member. You see, you would be partner in repression once you enter the council. You are the government and you will repress the citizen of India. So they said no council entry. Then they said revolutionary character of the movement would be imbibed in since 1919. It would take away that revolutionary character of the movement, because you are entering into such kind of politics. Same thing that was early in 1934 debate also. They rejected the negotiation of the Government of India Act or 1935. There's some said ki we'll negotiate Government of India Act 1935. It would be responsibility without power. What will you do with this responsibility? It will be without power, and with these people Gandhi also agreed. So as a solution, Communist and Nehru suggested the same thing. That same older suffragist one. Ki immediate strategy, is that immediate is the enter the council, okay, with a view to create roadblock, and long-term strategy is that to increase the reliance on the workers, peasants, and constructive work and all that. Okay, so those favoring office acceptance also denied that the constitutional methods can get them freedom. Okay, people who said that we should get into office, do the council entry. They also said that the purpose of is not the constitutional reforms, okay, because through constitutional methodology we cannot get freedom. They also understood that. They said no, there can be no freedom with that. So what should be done? They said the purpose is that it was must at this time, mass struggle was not on, so let's do something. That was the whole idea, okay. So that was one of the, and then they said objective is to fight the weak tendency, wrong tendency, and not abandon offices. We should fight ourselves, not the offices. Administrative field should not be left to the pro-government forces. Whatever we can have part of the administration, we should use that. Even if the Congress rejected the office, then there would be other group who would fight against the Congress and all the reactionary and communal politics. So let's get council entry and whatever seats we can get, let's suppose that much at least. So that was the idea. And what was the Gandhian view on this? Gandhi said that he suggested an alternative of preparation in the villages for the resumption of CDM. He said let's do constructive work and then there would be CDM. But by starting of the 1936, Gandhi realized that it was not feasible. So he was said, okay, fine, if you want to enter, you may enter. To give a trial to the formation of Congress ministers. Form the ministry, then we'll think about later. At least fight the election, then we will see what to do about it and how it is gone. Okay, I'll talk to you about this. 28 Congress wins the elections and 28 months they rule. What do they do within this rule? Were they able to be absolutely honest? Were they repressing against our own people? What was happening with them? We'll talk about this in the next lecture, okay. But before that, let me just conclude this particular lecture for you. You see, early 1936 Lucknow Congress, 1936 early there was Lucknow Congress session, and then in the later 1936 there was a Fazpur session, okay, Lucknow, and then there was a Fazpur session of the Congress, and they decided to fight the election and postpone the decision of office acceptance or not. They said fine, at least office acceptance later, let's fight election for now, because nothing has been, we are unable to decide anything, right? So we fight elections. Elections will be fought. Now, as happened in 1922 to 24, even now, again in 34, both the groups of the Congress, they said, okay, fine, we will not divide, rather let's do whatever we can see. We'll see later on what is to be done, okay. And left would always fight, left would also very severely oppose. They would not reach a breaking point, okay. That left would not break away the Congress at this time. So Congress Manifesto is announced at this time. So Congress Manifesto is announced. Whosoever wants to election, they may come and fight the election. What do they announce in this? They said total rejection of Government of India Act 1935. They promised restoration of the civil liberties, removal of disability on the basis of sex or untouchability, right? And they demand for the Constituent Assembly, which will form the constitution for a free India. So they also demanded for decrease in the rent and revenue collection. They also said we'll give you cheap credit. Okay, what is the problem of those times? These are being represented through this. If you know this much, you will know how the problem of those people were in the 1930s. Okay, so they had right to form a trade union, will give you those right, and will also give you right to strike. Okay, this is how it was going on. So elections spreaded. So what is happening basically? All this manifesto, they are spreading national consciousness that these are our demands. See, when in 2014 the Modi elections were done, they were national consciousness that we need this has been misdevelopment, we need to develop this. People got conscious. Same way people here are getting conscious of what is to be done. Okay, and Nehru did lot of campaigning. He traveled 80,000 kilometers in 5 months and addressed more than 10 million people, 1 crore people, that is. And Gandhiji did not address a single election meeting, though he was, but then he had that moral force on the people. Okay, and they won in most of the provinces except for few provinces. Congress did not win, for example, did not win in Bengal, Assam, NWFP and Northwestern Frontier Province, and Punjab and Sindh. Except for these, in most of the places it won. I'll talk to you in the next lecture about where it won and where it did not won. Okay, now basically overall, if I have to sum it up, okay, the prestige of the Congress had got a big boost, and it had got a big it rose right from, and it was Congress was as alternative to the colonial rule. And finally Nehru also realized that SV cannot be successful, we ought to have STS, true struggle strategy. Okay, so this is how the things were going on. Now in the next lecture we will be talking about the a 28-month rule of the Congress. Okay, 28-month rule. Now, last thing before I go is just a request to share this lecture with others. Please do this. That supports me. You know, you are come so far. Like this probably is like what lecture, 63rd, 62nd, or you know, probably 60-second lecture. Now if you have listened so far, at least do this much. How many times you have shared a video, right? Please do this on your social media with your friends also, right? And do click on the like button, and if you want the videos to come right into your email box, then you will need to subscribe to us, and that you can do by clicking over here on this button, right? So that is all, and thank you so much for watching this.